Married for 3 years, he wouldn't touch me and called me a country bumpkin. The day his sweetheart walked in with her pregnant belly, I took the initiative to present the divorce document. He sneered, "Without me, a woman like you won't survive 3 days." I turned around and entered the capital city's largest brothel. 3 days later, all the powerful and noble of the city broke down the threshold seeking an audience with the courtesan. He came under orders to investigate a case, and the moment he lifted the beaded curtain his pupils quaked. "How can it be you?" I lazily reclined on the couch, with his superior's superior kneeling at my feet. The weather in March changes at the drop of a hat. Just moments ago it was clear, and in a blink it poured down fine, icy threads of rain, hitting the bluestone slabs in the back courtyard of the Cheng'en Marquis Manor, splashing up dots of wet marks that quickly connected into one piece, glistening damply. The air was full of the smell of soil and rotting fallen leaves, a bone-chilling cold that drilled into people's very bones. Lin Wan knelt in this cold dampness outside the moon gate of the west side courtyard where she had lived for 3 years. Her thin summer clothes couldn't ward off the spring cold and had long been soaked through by the rain, clinging tightly to her body, outlining an overly slender frame. Strands of hair stuck to her pale cheeks and neck, rainwater dripping down from the tips of her hair and her jawline pitter-patter, splashing into the small puddles that had formed beneath her. Under her knees were rough stone slabs, the cold and pain long since numbed. Yet her spine remained ramrod straight like a bamboo pole that would rather break than bend, except that bamboo pole was now being battered fiercely by wind and rain. Trembling slightly, from inside the courtyard came faint sounds of strings and flutes, along with a woman's delicate and melodious singing voice. Through the curtain of rain, it wasn't clear yet, it was like countless fine needles, densely and persistently pricking the softest flesh of one's heart. Today was a good day for the Marquis Manor to take a concubine. The one being taken in was Gu Yanzhong's cousin Liu Ruyan, whom he had kept in his heart for 3 years, longed for 3 years. And she, the legitimate wife, was forced to kneel here, weighed down by the labels of jealous and barren. No, it wasn't a punishment kneel. An hour ago, the Momo by Liu Ruyan's side had specifically come to relay a message, saying the new concubine was heavy with child and couldn't stand foul air, requesting that the madam move aside and temporarily avoid the liveliness of this courtyard. When she didn't move, that Momo added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "His lordship also said that if madam is unwilling to move, then she might as well reflect on her mistakes here, lest she offend the precious Marquis Manor bloodline in the concubine's belly." What a fine reflect on her mistakes. Lin Wan tugged at the corner of her mouth, tasting the icy, salty bitterness of rainwater. What mistakes could she reflect on? Her mistake was being the countrywoman the old Marquis forcibly shoved onto Gu Yanzhong on his deathbed. Her mistake was occupying the legitimate wife position that belonged to his beloved for a full 3 years. Her mistake was failing to bear his child early on like Liu Ruyan had. No, he had never even touched her. On their wedding night, he slammed the door and left, leaving her with a room full of red candles and one ice-cold phrase, "A country bumpkin like you think you're worthy of entering my Gu family's doors." In the 3 years since, this west side courtyard had become the most exquisite cold palace in the Marquis Manor. He occasionally came either to mock her crude manners or to despise the poor countryside stench she brought with her. More often, though, he'd hurry off using the excuses of headache or chest tightness that Liu Ruyan had someone send over. The rain seemed to be getting heavier, hitting her face and causing sharp pain. Her vision was a bit blurred, not from tears but from rain. That was fine. Her tears had already dried up 3 years ago on that night of burning red candles, under that man's disgusted gaze. The sound of strings and flutes had stopped at some point. A series of chaotic footsteps and chatter grew closer, heading towards the moon gate. Lin Wan lowered her eyes, looking at her own shattered reflection in the puddle. The Marquis really dotes on Miss Biao. Look at all those furnishings in her room, even more impressive than the main courtyard. Exactly. Now that Miss Biao is with child, she is even more precious. Some people, squatting on the toilet without shitting, should have the sense to fuck off on their own already. Sheep it down, she is still kneeling outside. So what if she is kneeling? The Marquis hasn't told her to get up. She chose to kneel herself. Whose fault is that? She should take a good look at her own background. Does she really think she can become a phoenix just by landing on a branch? A pheasant will always be a pheasant. The maids' and servants' harsh gossip drifted over like poisoned needles without restraint. Lin Wan's fingertips dug into her palm, leaving several crescent-shaped white marks that quickly turned red from being soaked in the rain. The footsteps stopped in front of the moon gate. A warm breeze mixed with powder and incense, wrapped with a man's crisp yet unfamiliar scent, rushed at her face, dispelling some of the damp, cold rain. Lin Wan didn't lift her head. A pair of brocade boots stained with mud stopped right before her eyes. The hem of the dark robe was embroidered with intricate cloud patterns in silver thread. Rainwater fell upon it, forming tiny droplets that rolled down. The owner of the robe didn't move, just stood there looking down from above. "Still here?" Gu Yanzhang's voice was colder than the spring rain, devoid of emotion, so calm it was as if he were asking about the weather. "Ru Yan is kind-hearted and can't bear to see people suffer. You sure know how to exploit that kindness of hers." Kneeling here for whose benefit, Lin Wan slowly, bit by bit, raised her head. The rain blurred her vision. She blinked hard before she could see the person before her clearly. 3 years had passed, yet that face remained sharply handsome as ever, sword-like brows, starry eyes, a high-bridged nose. Only those eyes which might once have held the clarity of youth, now when looking at her contained nothing but an unfathomably cold abyss, reflecting her current wretched appearance. She opened her mouth. Her throat was dry and tight, her voice so hoarse it sounded foreign even to herself. "Gu Yanzhang." His brows furrowed ever so slightly, as if unaccustomed to her calling him by his full name like this, or perhaps it was disgust at her hoarse and unpleasant voice. "I've been married to you for 3 years, she said each word very slowly, very forcefully, as if squeezing them out from her frozen lungs. "I've upheld wifely virtues, managed the household, served your mother, never once slacking off. Have you ever, even for a single day, treated me as your wife?" Gu Yanzhang acted as if he'd heard some absurd joke, the corner of his mouth curling into an extremely faint, mocking arc. "Wife? Lin Wan, are you reminding me how you got the position of the Marquis' Manor's lady? If it weren't for father insisting on his deathbed, do you think I would have even spared you a second glance?" He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice, that icy breath almost spraying on her face. 3 years, and you still haven't learned to recognize your own status. A village woman who got the title of the Marquis Manor's lady, that is already an enormous stroke of fortune. What more could you possibly hope for? Hope for? Lin Wan wanted to laugh, but the corners of her mouth were too stiff to move. Had she hoped for anything, perhaps when she first married in, that 16-year-old girl who still held on to one last thread of naive longing for the future and her husband had secretly hoped. But soon enough, reality crushed that pitiful hope into dust. "Since the Marquis has never regarded me as a wife," she heard her own voice, frighteningly calm, even suppressing that hoarseness. "Then today, as concubine Liu enters the household, I request to leave this marriage myself. It can be considered as honoring the feelings between the Marquis and cousin, lest I, this country bumpkin, continue to tarnish the Marquis Manor's reputation and offend the concubine's noble person." The sneer on Gu Yanzhang's lips froze, his eyes suddenly sharpening, as if truly examining for the first time this woman kneeling in the rain before him. Her face was drained of color, her lips frozen purple, her soaked hair plastered to her forehead and cheeks. She looked truly wretched, but those eyes, pitch black, held none of the crying, begging, or resentment he'd expected. Not even much emotion at all, only a desolate calm beneath that calm. Something else seemed to be burning deeply cold and bright. "Request to leave the marriage," he repeated it, as if confirming these words had actually come from her mouth. Then that sneer crept back onto his face, even thicker. "Lin Wan, what do you think the Marquis Manor is? You think you can come and go as you please? Without my Cheng'en Marquis Manor, without this country bumpkin title, what do you think you are? A woman like you without the Marquis Manor's protection. In this capital city, you think you could survive 3 days? You think you could survive 3 days?" That sentence was like the final key with a click. It unlocked the cage in her heart that had been rusted for 3 years and filled with icy shards. Something shattered and something else from the deepest, darkest ruins, trembling yet unwavering, emerged. She looked at him and suddenly smiled, extremely slowly. That smile was fleeting as a night blooming serious. Yet it inexplicably made Gu Yanzhang's heart skip a beat. "Whether I live or not," she said slowly, word by word, crystal clear, "is no longer your lordship's concern." She no longer looked at him, nor did she pay any attention to the surrounding gazes that were either astonished or gloating. With hands nearly numb from the cold, she braced herself against the slippery ground. After 2 attempts, she struggled to stand up. A bone-piercing pain came from her knees, and her vision went black for a moment. She swayed but steadied herself, her spine still ramrod straight. Then she turned around and, step by step, dragging her soaked, heavy skirt stained with mud, walked toward the direction opposite to the west side courtyard where she had lived for 3 years, toward those heavy vermilion gates of the Marquis Manor. Rain mercilessly poured down on her, yet she walked with unusual steadiness, as if beneath her feet were not slippery stone slabs but a broad road carpeted in red. Pay attention to this scene design of kneeling in the rain. She wasn't being punished with kneeling, she was invited to kneel, implementing the cruelest humiliation in the most polite manner. This kind of killing with a soft knife is more terrifying than direct violence, because it leaves the victim without even grounds to resist. And Lin Wan's response is even more devastating. She doesn't cry or make a scene, just asks one question: "Have you ever for even one day regarded me as your wife?" This is a soul-piercing question because both parties already know the answer. "Where are you going?" Gu Yanzhang's voice sounded from behind, carrying a hint of tension he himself hadn't even noticed. Lin Wan didn't look back. "Lord Marquis." She stopped walking and turned her face slightly to the side. The curtain of rain blurred her silhouette. Only her voice penetrated through the sound of rain, calm and waveless. "My dowry was already inventoried 3 days ago. The list is pressed at the very bottom of my makeup case. Aside from what I brought originally, I won't take a single needle or thread from Marquis Manor. The divorce document, I've already written it, signed and sealed it. It is placed in that copy of Art of War you often read in the study. From now on, our marriages are none of each other's concern. Life, death, glory, and disgrace. No longer related." She hesitated no more. Stepping over that high threshold, she walked into the boundless curtain of rain outside. Her figure was quickly swallowed by the grey-white veil of rain and disappeared from sight. Gu Yanzhang stood in place, watching the direction she disappeared in. The rain soaked the hem of his robe, but he was completely unaware that inexplicable restlessness in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Just now, that look in her eyes, that smile, that straight back, and those final words: "Something's wrong, everything's wrong. This doesn't seem like that submissive, quiet Lin Wan. My lord, the rain is getting heavier. Please take care of yourself and go inside. Miss Biao is still waiting for you." The trusted Mama by Liu Ruyan's side came over with an umbrella and said cautiously. Gu Yanzhang suddenly snapped back to his senses, suppressing that strange feeling in his heart, and said coldly, "Send someone to follow her and see where she can go. Also, go to the study and find that divorce document." He wanted to see if she was bluffing or if she really lost her mind. The Mama quickly acknowledged, then hesitated and said, "Then about her dowry. Since she said she doesn't want it, would Marquis Manor actually covet those country things of hers?" Gu Yanzhang's tone was impatient. Count everything according to the list, and when she finds a place to stay, throw it all out. The last few words were spoken through gritted teeth. Whether he was angry at her ignorance or angry at something else, who knew? He turned around and walked toward the brightly lit main courtyard filled with warm, sweet fragrance. Sound of strings and flutes rose faintly again, and Liu Ruyan's soft, sweet Wu dialect drifted over, carrying infinite attachment and joy. This was the life he should be living, the person he should be cherishing. That inexplicable woman, what did her life or death have to do with him? Yet, before stepping over the threshold of the main courtyard, he couldn't help but turn back once more to glance at the empty moon gate shrouded in curtains of rain. 3 days later, night, Jising Tower. Jising Tower wasn't a tower. It was the capital city's most renowned den of luxury and pleasure. Facing the most prosperous Duke Avenue, yet forming a world of its own. Its 7-tiered pavilions with flying eaves and interlocking brackets blazed with 1,000 lamps at night. Bright as day. The sounds of strings, flutes, pipes and merry laughter filled the air endlessly, while the thick, sweet scent of powder and perfume drifted far and wide, leaving passers-by utterly entranced. However, tonight the star-plucking tower was somewhat different from usual. The clamour remained, but within that clamour there was more restlessness, more urgency, more indescribable excitement. In front of the tower, carriages and horses formed a dragon-like procession, jam-packed, all with ornate canopies and jewelled tops, either wealthy or noble. The haughty servants who usually looked down on everyone had now reined in their arrogance, sizing each other up and conversing in low voices. Yet their gazes all coincidentally focused on the topmost floor of the 7-story pavilion, the never-before publicly opened Xuanji Pavilion. Have you heard that Liu girl is going to perform at Xuanji Pavilion tonight? More than just perform. She is making an appearance. The star-plucking tower put out word that Miss Liu will choose a guest to meet, regardless of gold or silver, only based on fate. Bah, what fate? Isn't it just whoever pays the most? The Minister Liu's son already had whole chests of gold ingots carried in the other day. Gold ingots are nothing. General Wang sent someone to deliver an ancient painting from the previous dynasty, supposedly worth a fortune. Stop arguing. I heard that even from inside the palace someone sent word out. The buzz of discussion drowned out the night wind. Everyone craned their necks, gazing at where the light shone brightest, imagining just how devastatingly beautiful and incomparably talented that mysterious courtesan must be, the one who had caused a sensation throughout the city in 3 days and made countless powerful nobles bow down in competition. No one knew that this Miss Liu had been just 3 days ago. A cast-out wife kneeling in the cold rain of the Marquis Manor, declared by her husband to have no more than 3 days to live. Inside the Xuanji Pavilion, however, was another world entirely. The clamour from outside was blocked by heavy curtains and ingenious mechanisms, leaving only a refreshing tranquility. The pavilion was extremely spacious, yet not empty. An appropriate number of red sandalwood furniture pieces were arranged here and there. Porcelain and jade on the curio shelves glowed with a warm lustre, and thick Western region wool carpets covered the floor, muffling all footsteps. A refined, cool fragrance drifted through the air like the scent of pine branches after snow, with a trace of barely perceptible bitter herbal notes that cleared one's mind upon breathing it in. To the south was an entire carved glass window now half open, with the night breeze drifting in and stirring the light gauze curtains hanging before it. Behind the gauze, the outline of a chaise lounge could be faintly seen, with a figure reclining upon it in a posture as languid as a satisfied cat. Lin Wan, no, at this moment she was Liu, had just bathed and was wearing only a moon-white silk nightgown. Her long hair hung loose, cascading like a waterfall onto the couch behind her, the ends still carrying a hint of dampness. Her face bore no makeup, yet compared to 3 days ago at the Marquis Manor, it had gained a bit more vivid colour and lost some of that rigid, deathly pallor, especially those eyes washed clean of 3 years' accumulated dust, purely black and startlingly bright, like stars submerged in a cold pool. As her gaze shifted, they carried a casual yet utterly captivating air of cool allure. A woman dressed in blue as a maidservant, yet whose movements revealed practiced efficiency, silently entered and placed a bowl of medicinal soup, with wisps of steam rising from it on the small table beside her. "It is about time," Liu hummed in acknowledgement without touching the medicine bowl, only asking, "What is the situation outside? Per your instructions, the news has been spread. Those who should come have pretty much arrived." The woman in blue paused, lowering her voice slightly. "Someone from the Marquis' Manor of Receive a Favor has also come. A trusted personal attendant from Gu Yanzhong's side, mixed in with the crowd." The corners of Liu's lips curved into an extremely subtle arc, but there was no hint of a smile in her eyes. "He is quite impatient," She extended 2 fingers and delicately picked up a meticulously crafted invitation from the small table that gave off a faint osmanthus fragrance. The invitation had only one word on it, meet. At the signature, there was a small personal seal with ancient-looking characters, clearly the character Xiao. The personal seal of the current regent prince, Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan sent an invitation too. Her fingertip rubbed over that character Xiao. For a moment, then casually tossed the invitation back onto the table, as if that seal representing supreme authority was no different from an ordinary invitation. Saves me quite a bit of trouble. Master, the regent prince, he. A trace of barely perceptible worry crept into the voice of the woman in green. No matter, Liu interrupted her, picked up the bowl of warm medicinal soup, and drank it all in one gulp. The medicine was extremely bitter, yet she didn't furrow her brows even slightly, only letting out a soft breath that carried the clear, bitter medicinal fragrance. Those who should be met must be met, and the debts that should be settled. Her gaze turned toward the hazy lamplight outside the window, her voice as light as a sigh, yet as cold as ice. Not a single one will be spared. She set down the medicine bowl, her fingertip lightly pressing on an inconspicuous protrusion at the edge of the couch. Ding! A clear ringing sound, like jade stones striking together, pierced through the silence and traveled outward. In an instant, dozens of glazed lanterns hanging along the corridor outside Xuanji Pavilion lit up one after another, their radiance flowing and reflecting the path leading inside like a dream or fantasy. The clamor from downstairs fell strangely silent for a moment, then erupted into an even greater roar. The door of Xuanji Pavilion opened. No heavy makeup, no jingling ornaments, not even a change into gorgeous dancing attire. Liu still wore that moon-white sleeping robe, only loosely draped with an outer garment of sky-water blue gossamer, barefoot, slowly walking out from the inner room. She appeared just like that before the eyes of the powerful and noble filling the building with eager anticipation, appeared within countless gazes that were greedy, curious, or stunned. No smile, no shyness, not even bothering to lift her eyelids. She simply walked casually to a 7-stringed chin in the center of the pavilion, lacquered entirely black with an ancient and simple design, and sat down behind it. Then her slender fingers plucked. Zheng, a clear crisp and aloof single note abruptly rang out like an ice pick piercing through the warm and cloying night, instantly washing away all jumbled thoughts. Immediately after, the sound of the zither flowed like water, like a glacier suddenly splitting, like an avalanche just beginning, carrying a devastating yet bone-chillingly cold and fierce momentum that swept across the entire space. This was not the decadent music that belonged in a pleasure house. This was the clash of weapons and war horses, the solitary smoke beyond the frontier passes, the proud pine standing against wind and snow on a sheer cliff, the solitary moon shining alone in the cold night over a deep pool. Within the zither's sound was the air of slaughter, the intent of solitary coldness, and even more so an indescribable desolation and mockery, as if one had weathered all storms and seen through the warmth and coldness of human nature. The entire hall was shocked. Even the regent Prince Xiao Yan, hidden behind the beaded curtain of an elegant room on the 2nd floor, who had come with a sense of amusement and scrutiny, couldn't help but straighten his posture, a trace of genuine surprise flashing through his deep eyes. This zither sound, this presence, it was absolutely not something an ordinary brothel woman could possess. In fact, it didn't seem like a tone that should belong to this prosperous and magnificent imperial capital. The attendant sent by Gu Yanzhang had been mixed in at the end of the crowd, already stunned silly. He was ordered to come find out the details of this suddenly emerged courtesan and report back to the Lord Marquis. But at this moment his mouth hung open, his eyes fixed on that pure and aloof figure behind the chin, his mind completely blank. This is really that lady from the west side courtyard who was taciturn and rebuked by the Lord Marquis as a country bumpkin. No, impossible. Absolutely impossible. But those eyes and features, the chin music grew urgent, like violent wind and sudden rain, and like 10,000 galloping horses, just as everyone was being drawn into that solemn and vast artistic conception by the music, the strings suddenly let out a sharp tearing sound. Twang! At the highest pitched moment, one chin string actually snapped clean through. The Qin music stopped abruptly. The entire venue fell deathly silent. Liu looked at that broken string, her expression indifferent, as if she had anticipated this. She slowly withdrew her hand, a very fine, bloody mark on her fingertip. She put her fingertip to her lips and gently sucked away that bit of crimson red, the motion casual, yet because of her current cold expression, inexplicably revealing a heart-stopping, bewitching strangeness. "The Qin string is broken," she spoke, her voice not loud, yet clearly reaching everyone's ears. "Cold as the Qin music tonight, this is where it ends." Having said that, she stood up, turned around without any reluctance, and walked toward the inner chamber. Her sky-blue gauze robe trailed on the ground, her bare feet stepping on the plush carpet without a sound, leaving behind the lingering melody of the zither still echoing throughout the room, and a floor full of dropped jaws. "Miss, please wait." Someone couldn't help but call out, "Miss Liu, this Wang is willing to offer 1,000 gold pieces for you to play one more piece." "Miss," chaotic shouts rang out, and some anxious ones even tried to surge forward. The several green-robed maidservants guarding the pavilion door suddenly turned cold in their gaze, their hands moving to their waists, where the outline of hard objects could be faintly seen beneath their clothing. "Silence," a slightly effeminate voice, yet carrying an unquestionable authority, rang out. A middle-aged man with a pale, beardless face, dressed in an indigo brocade robe, emerged from Xiaoyan's private room, his gaze sweeping lightly across the crowd. "His Highness has ordered that Miss Liu is not to be disturbed." As soon as the words "His Highness" were spoken, all commotion instantly ceased. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and uncertainty. The Regent Prince actually came in person, and he is protecting this courtesan like this. Liu's footsteps paused almost imperceptibly before stepping through the curtain into the inner chamber, but she didn't look back, and her figure eventually disappeared behind the gauze. The door of Xuanji Pavilion slowly closed once more, shutting out the building full of fervent gazes and various speculations. The chamber returned to silence. Liu walked back to the edge of the imperial concubine's couch, but didn't sit down. Instead, she stood before the half-open glazed window, gazing down at the gradually dispersing yet still chattering flow of carriages and people below. The night wind stirred her still damp long hair, and thin gauze robe outlining a slender yet upright silhouette. The woman in green silently followed her in, draping a slightly thicker outer robe over her shoulders, and said in a low voice, "Master from the regent's side, word has been sent. Tomorrow afternoon he wishes to see you alone." "Understood," Liu responded, her gaze falling on a certain direction in the distance. There lay the district where Marquis Manor was located, its lights sparse and scattered, submerged in the deep, thick night. She watched for a moment, then suddenly smiled ever so faintly. "Only 3 days," she murmured to herself, as if speaking to herself, yet also as if speaking to that man who had asserted she wouldn't survive 3 days. "Guyanzhang, look. I'm not only alive, but living far more interestingly than you imagined." The night was still long. The play had only just begun. The next day afternoon, Regent Xiaoyan didn't make a grand display. He merely took what appeared to be an ordinary carriage, though one that concealed mysteries within, made of blue wool fabric, quietly entering through the back door of Jising Tower and heading straight up to Xuanji Pavilion. Inside the pavilion it remained elegant and quiet, with a cold fragrance lingering in the air. Liu had changed into a narrow-sleeved dress in the color of sky blue after rain, her hair fastened up with a simple white jade hairpin, revealing a clear and graceful jawline and a section of fair neck. She was sitting by a small table in front of the window, brewing tea with her delicate hands. Her movements flowed like water, carrying a tranquil elegance that was utterly out of place in this world of pleasure. When Xiaoyan entered, this was the scene that greeted him. His eyes flickered slightly as he waved his hand to dismiss the servant who had led the way. "Please sit, Your Highness." Liu did not rise. She merely lifted her eyes to glance at him, her gaze calm and undisturbed, as if the visitor were not the regent prince who held power over the court, but just an ordinary guest. Xiaoyan did not mind and sat down across from her. He appeared to be around 30, with handsome features and deep-set eyes. The commanding presence cultivated from his long-held position of authority revealed itself inadvertently. But at this moment he restrained that oppressive aura well, leaving only scrutiny and inquiry. Miss Liu's skill with the zither is absolutely stunning, but I wonder where does such a sound of bleakness and killing intent come from? Liu pushed a cup of clear tea in front of him. The tea was a limpid jade green, its fragrance delicate and serene. The heart feels something, and the strings respond accordingly. Your Highness gives too much praise. Xiao Yan took the teacup but didn't drink. His fingertips caressed the warm porcelain surface as his gaze fell on her face, as if trying to see through that calm exterior into what lay beneath. You're no ordinary courtesan, he said with certainty. Before last night there was no trace of you in the capital city. You appeared out of thin air yet stirred up a storm throughout the city. I wonder who exactly are you? What are you after? Liu picked up her own teacup and gently blew on the tea leaves floating on the surface. Is your Highness here to investigate a case or to listen to music? Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed. Investigate a case. He had indeed been supervising a widespread secret case recently, involving military supplies at the borderlands and forces within the court. Quite a thorny matter. How did this woman know about it? Was it coincidence? Or, this prince is investigating a case. I know a thing or two. Liu took a sip of tea, set down the teacup, and looked directly at Xiao Yan. The military supply corruption case Your Highness is investigating. The leads went cold at Vice Minister of Revenue Li Yun, isn't that right? Xiao Yan's expression abruptly turned severe. The gentle aura around him instantly faded, replaced by the sharp, imposing pressure belonging to the Prince Regent silently spreading outward. Who the hell are you? Liu seemed completely unaffected by his imposing pressure, even smiling faintly, though the smile didn't reach her eyes. Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is I can give Your Highness the clues you want. She paused, lowering her voice a few notches with a bewitchingly calm tone. Li Yun is not the mastermind. There are people behind him, and they have close past connections with certain tribes in the northern frontier. 3 years ago, that batch of moldy grain supplies transported south via the canal never fully reached the northern frontier camps. 30% of it accidentally sank at Jizhou Dock. What was inside the crates salvaged wasn't grain at all. Xiao Yan's pupils contracted sharply. The northern frontier grain supply case from 3 years ago had always been an unsolved case and a thorn in his heart. That batch of spoiled grain had caused the border troops to face temporary shortages, although it didn't lead to major disaster. The truth had never been uncovered. This woman's mention of moldy grain supplies, Jizhou Dock, and crates, all matched up with certain fragmentary information in the confidential reports, yet were even more specific and more shocking. Where is the evidence? He asked in a deep voice, each word weighing 1,000 catties. Evidence naturally exists, Liu said calmly. However, if I give Your Highness the clues, Your Highness must also agree to one thing for me. Speak, I want a promise from Your Highness. Liu looked at him, speaking each word deliberately. Should the day come when I'm pitted against certain people or certain matters, as long as it doesn't endanger the nation or violate Your Highness's principles, please. Just stand aside and watch. Xiao Yan stared at her for a long time. This woman was too mysterious, too dangerous, like a poisoned dagger hidden in silk. But the information she possessed was far too important to him. All right, he finally nodded, as long as what you say is true and doesn't cross this king's bottom line. Your Highness is forthright. Liu took out a thin mulberry paper envelope sealed with wax from her sleeve and pushed it in front of Xiao Yan. A copy of Li Yun's correspondence with the northern frontier, as well as the whereabouts of testimonies from some of the dock workers at Jizhou port that day. It is all in here. Your Highness may verify it yourself. Xiao Yan picked up the envelope. It felt slightly heavy in his hand. He didn't open it immediately, only looked deeply at Liu. With such capabilities, young lady, you're willing to remain in this world of pleasure quarters. Liu lowered her eyes, looking at the tea leaves floating and sinking in her cup, her voice light and distant. The world of pleasure quarters is sometimes the best shield. Your Highness, the tea has gone cold. This was a dismissal. Xiao Yan said no more, carefully put away the envelope, and stood up. This king will remember what you've given me, young lady. The promised matter shall also be fulfilled. I take my leave. I won't see you out after Xiao Yan left. Only Liu remained alone in the pavilion. She continued sitting there, slowly finishing that cup of now slightly cool tea. A woman in green flashed inside and said in a low voice, "Master, there is movement on Gu Yanzhang's side." After hearing his attendance report, he seemed skeptical and personally went to investigate several suspected hideouts we arranged beforehand, finding nothing. Also, Liu Ruyan used the excuse of fetal movement discomfort today and called for a doctor. The doctor said she is troubled at heart and needs rest to protect the pregnancy. Gu Yanzhang has been staying with her in the main courtyard the whole time. Liu put down her teacup, her fingertips lightly tracing across the cold porcelain surface. "Troubled at heart," she scoffed. "Now that she has gotten what she wanted and is basking in glory, what is there to be troubled about? Unless her greed knows no bounds and she wants even more." "Master, our next step, no rush." Liu walked to the window, her gaze distant. "The bait has been cast. The fish will eventually bite. Have someone leak to Gu Yanzhang that I've been recuperating in Jizhou for 3 years and only recently recovered and returned to the capital. Remember, it must be leaked inadvertently." "Yes," the woman in green acknowledged, then hesitated before asking, "Master, you're having the Regent Prince stay out of this. Are you worried that when we confront Marquis Manor in the future, he might interfere?" "Marquis Manor," Liu turned back, a trace of cold mockery flashing in her eyes. "Gu Yanzhang isn't worthy enough for me to use up this favor. What I'm guarding against is that the thread behind Liu Ruyan might lead to an even bigger fish." She walked to the zither, her fingertips brushing across the broken string. "Tell Jizhou that the salvage records from that shipwreck back then can accidentally have a copy discovered. Also have Jingja make a move and add fuel to the fire at the northern frontier. Don't let our dear minister live too comfortably." "Yes." The woman in green's expression turned solemn as she received the order and left. Liu stood alone in the empty pavilion. Outside the window, the sunlight was just right, casting dappled light and shadow around her through the glass window. She raised her hand, looking at her slender yet rock-steady fingers. 3 years lying low, 3 years of scheming from that serious illness in Jizhou, from when she decided to no longer be that Lin Wan who could be manipulated at will. This path had already been laid out. Gu Yanzhang, Liu Ruyan, the Marquis Manor. The debts owed must be repaid. And what she lost, what was trampled upon, she would take back with her own hands, piece by piece. Several days later at the Marquis Manor, Gu Yanzhang irritably threw the confidential report in his hand onto the desk. The people he'd sent out had been running around like headless flies for days, and regarding Lin Wan's whereabouts, they'd only obtained one vague piece of information. Someone seemed to have seen a woman resembling the lady in Jizhou, where she had been recuperating for 3 years, and had only recently returned to the capital. Jizhou. Recuperating. Gu Yanzhang's brows knitted into a tight knot. 3 years ago, Lin Wan did indeed claim illness and stayed at the manor for a while. At that time, he was busy running around for Liu Ruyan's father's matter, and couldn't be bothered with her, simply assuming she was being sensible by staying away. Could it be? No, that is not right. If she really was recuperating in Jizhou, why was there never any news from the manor? The Marquis Manor never received any request from her to extend her rest either. This doesn't follow protocol. And there is that Liu from Jising Tower. The attendant swore up and down that her features were 70 to 80% similar to Madam's, especially those eyes. But one is a country bumpkin abandoned wife he discarded like worn-out shoes, and the other is a mysterious courtesan who is the talk of the capital, catching even the Regent Prince's attention. How could they possibly be the same person? Absolutely ridiculous. Yet that thread of doubt at the bottom of his heart spread like poisonous vines, entangling him and making him restless. Especially remembering that day in the rain, her straight-back silhouette and those words, "Whether I live or not is no longer your lordship's concern," and that divorce document tucked inside the Art of War book, its strokes penetrating the paper yet abnormally composed. "My lord," Liu Ruyan's delicate voice came from outside the study, carrying just the right touch of frailty. "This concubine has stewed some ginseng soup. Please rest for a moment." Gu Yanzhang suppressed his irritation and got up to open the door. Liu Ruyan was wearing a loose dress, her belly already slightly bulging. Her face carried a gentle smile, but a lingering gloom lurked in her eyes. Ruyan, why did you come? Didn't I tell you to rest more? Gu Yanzhang took the ginseng soup and helped her sit down. Lying down all day is boring too. I thought the Marquis has been worried about official matters lately, so I came to check on you. Liu Ruyan nestled against his side, her gaze seemingly casually sweeping over the scattered letters on the table. Is the Marquis still troubled by that girl, Liu? She is just a courtesan. Even if she has some talents, she ultimately can't be brought to the table. Why should the Marquis care? Gu Yanzhang's brows furrowed again. Liu Ruyan's words sounded comforting, but always made him feel somewhat deliberate. Moreover, she seemed particularly concerned about that Liu. It is not about caring, he said vaguely. It is just that this woman appeared suspiciously, and is entangled with certain matters. What matters could she be entangled with? Liu Ruyan covered her mouth and laughed lightly, though her eyes held no mirth. Could it be that the Marquis suspects she is related to elder sister? When she mentioned the words elder sister, her voice paused slightly, carrying an imperceptible tension. Gu Yanzhang's heart stirred as he looked at Liu Ruyan. You also think she resembles Lin Wan? Liu Ruyan's fingers tightened slightly, yet her face broke into an even more gentle smile. I was just speaking casually. There are so many people in this world who look alike. Elder sister has always been the most gentle and proper in temperament. How could she go to that kind of place? The Marquis must be overthinking. Since elder sister took the divorce document and left, she must be disheartened and has returned to her hometown. Wasn't there news from Jizhou? The more she spoke this way, the heavier the cloud of suspicion grew in Gu Yanzhang's heart. Liu Ruyan's reaction was not quite right. She seemed eager to disassociate Lin Wan from that Liu, and was even eager to characterize Lin Wan as having returned to her hometown. Marquis, seeing his expression shifting, Liu Ruyan felt uneasy and changed the subject. My father sent a letter the other day saying that the northern frontier seems rather restless lately, and told the Marquis to pay more attention to movements at court. Northern frontier. Gu Yanzhang's eyes sharpened. Liu Ruyan's father, Minister Liu, was in charge of the Ministry of Revenue and also managed some of the military provisions for the borderlands. He suddenly recalled that the Prince Regent Xiao Yan seemed to be secretly investigating an old case recently, which was also vaguely related to the northern frontier. Could it be an utterly absurd, yet spine-chilling thought crashed into Gu Yanzhang's mind without warning? If Lin Wan really was Liu, how could a sheltered housewife transform herself into the courtesan queen of Jising Tower? Where would she get the ability to stir up such turmoil, even catching the regent prince's attention, unless there was someone backing her? Or perhaps she was never the simple village woman he thought she was. And there was Jizhou 3 years ago. The estate where Lin Wan went to recuperate seemed to be near the Jizhou docks, and recently undercurrents have been stirring in the court, seemingly all related to events from 3 or 4 years ago. Cold sweat silently soaked through Gu Yanzhang's inner garment. My lord, what is wrong? You look so pale. Liu Ruyan called out to him with concern. Gu Yanzhang snapped back to his senses, looking at the gentle and considerate Liu Ruyan before him, then thinking of that figure who resolutely left in the rain and was now so enigmatic. For the first time he felt earth-shattering doubts about his understanding of the past 3 years. It is nothing. He forced himself to stay calm and helped Liu Ruyan to her feet. You're heavy with child. Go back and rest. I still have some official matters to handle. After sending Liu Ruyan away, Gu Yanzhang paced alone in his study, his mind in complete turmoil. He had to find out. He had to go confirm it himself. Summonon, come, he called out in a heavy voice. His attendant entered at his call. Prepare the carriage. We're going to Jising Tower, Gu Yanzhang said through gritted teeth. Send my card, say. Marquis Chang'en. Gu Yanzhang requests an audience with Miss Liu. He had to see with his own eyes whether that Liu was really Lin Wan. If she truly was, he didn't dare imagine what that would mean. Jising Tower, Xuanji Pavilion. Liu listened to the report from the woman in green, gently swirling the white porcelain wine cup in her hand. Inside was amber-colored fruit wine that reflected the candlelight with flowing brilliance. He finally can't hold back and is coming in person. Her tone was flat, revealing neither joy nor anger. Master, shall we receive him? Receive him, why not? The corners of Liu's lips curved into a cold arc. When an old acquaintance comes calling, we must entertain them properly. Hang up that fishing alone in the cold river painting that Xiao Yan sent yesterday. Hang it where he'll see it the moment he enters. Also light the Suhui incense. Suhui incense, the woman in green was slightly surprised. That was an emotional incense that could mildly disturb the mind and draw people into recalling specific past events. Its ingredients were rare and extremely difficult to prepare. Liu nodded. Control the dosage well, just enough to make him restless. What she wanted was for Gu Yanzhong to lose his composure completely. The woman in green received the order and went to prepare. Li Yue walked to the vanity table. In the bronze mirror reflected a face of ethereal beauty, yet shrouded in a layer of frost. She picked up an eyebrow pencil and carefully traced. Today's makeup had to be 2 points more exquisite than usual, especially the eyes and brows. They needed to resemble Lin Wan, a bit more, yet with added sharpness and elegance beyond Lin Wan. Guyan Zhang, take a good look. See what your once discarded country bumpkin looks like now. See what your coldness, humiliation, and trampling inflicted upon me will ultimately bring you. Night fell once again. The star-plucking tower's lanterns were just lit, the clamour even greater than usual. But the jade mechanism pavilion was like a place of silence in the eye of a storm. Not long after Guyan Zhang's invitation card was sent in, a reply came. Miss Li Yue requests your presence. Following the guiding maidservant up the stairs to the top floor, Guyan Zhang's heart beat faster and faster. He had deliberately changed into casual clothes, not wanting to appear too intentional, but his palms involuntarily broke out in cold sweat. The surrounding extravagant opulence, the well-trained deference of the maidservants, all gave him a strange sense of oppression. This place was utterly different from the brothels and pleasure houses in his understanding, more like the secret estate of some powerful noble. The door of the Xuanji pavilion opened silently. A crisp, cold fragrance with a hint of peculiar sweet warmth rushed towards him. Gu Yanzhang's steps paused slightly. This scent was somewhat familiar yet somewhat strange. As it entered his lungs, it made him feel a bit dazed, as if he had instantly returned to some hazy scene from 3 years ago. He steadied himself and stepped inside. The furnishings in the pavilion remained elegant. The first thing that caught his eye was an ink wash painting hanging on the opposite wall. Solitary fishing in a cold river. The scene was vast and desolate. A small flat boat, an old man in a straw rain cape and hat, alone facing the snowy cold river. The brushwork was vigorous and lofty. At the signature, there was unmistakably the private seal of Prince Regent Xiao Yan. Gu Yanzhang's pupils contracted. Xiao Yan's calligraphy masterpiece was openly hanging here. What did this mean? The relationship between this Liu and Xiao Yan was far from ordinary. His gaze hastily turned toward the inner chamber. Beaded curtains hung down, swaying gently in the wind, colliding with delicate, clear sounds. Behind the curtain on the noble consort's couch, a figure lay lazily on its side, back facing him, wearing a soft gauze long dress in the color of rosy clouds, the hem of the skirt trailing on the ground like flowing clouds spilling forth. Her long hair was unbound, only partially pinned up loosely with a single long hairpin, revealing the graceful lines of her neck and a small patch of fair shoulder. Just a single view of her back was already breathtakingly captivating. Gu Yanzhang's heart sank. This silhouette, the outline of this silhouette, the maid who had led the way had already silently withdrawn and closed the door. Only the two of them remained in the pavilion, so quiet that they could hear each other's breathing and his own increasingly loud heartbeat. Miss Liu, Gu Yanzhang spoke, his voice somewhat hoarse. Gu has taken the liberty to visit. The figure on the couch seemed to move slightly, then slowly turned around. The beaded curtains swayed, light and shadow blurred. That face gradually became clear before Gu Yanzhang's eyes bit by bit, eyebrows like distant mountains tinged with ink, eyes like autumn waters rippling, a refined nose bridge, lips colored beautifully. Her makeup was exquisitely perfect, outlining her already outstanding features even more stunningly. especially those eyes dark and bright, with the outer corners slightly upturned, carrying a kind of casual yet soul-stealing cold charm. This face Gu Yanzhang felt as if struck by lightning, abruptly stepping back half a step and bumping into the rosewood flower stand behind him. A white jade incense burner on the stand wobbled, nearly falling. So similar, too similar. The eyebrows, eyes, mouth and nose were clearly Lin Wan's, yet completely different. The woman before him had luminous, glowing skin, a lazy and noble bearing, sharp and icy eyes. Where was even half a trace of that meek, pale and silent village woman from back then? No, impossible. Absolutely impossible. But deep in her heart, a voice was screaming madly, "It is her. It is Lin Wan. You." Yanzhang pointed at her, his finger trembling. His throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton, unable to form a complete sentence. The veins on his forehead bulged, and on his usually calm and composed face, there remained only incredulous shock and furious alarm. Liu Lin Wan gently propped up her upper body, her elbow resting against the soft pillow on the couch, leisurely watching him in this devastated state. She even tilted her head slightly, a faint, icy smile blooming at the corner of her lips. That smile was like a blade of ice, piercing straight into one's heart. "Lord Gu," she spoke, her voice clear and cold, carrying a long-absent yet utterly familiar tone. Each word struck at Gu Yanzhang's nearly collapsing nerves. "It has been a while. Seeing that I'm still alive, and living quite well. Does that surprise you, my lord?" His dialogue is the climax of the entire text. Note her tone, it is not anger, not resentment, but a kind of watching a show indifference. She even used the social pleasantry, "It has been a while," as if the person before her wasn't the ex-husband who humiliated her for 3 years, but some insignificant old acquaintance. This kind of emotional downgrade is more ruthless than any revenge. "You're no longer worth my hatred." Gu Yanzhang's pupils quaked violently, and all the blood in his body seemed to rush to the top of his head in an instant, then came crashing back down to his feet, leaving his limbs ice-cold. That face he had seen day and night for 3 years now appeared again in such a completely different, even stunningly shocking manner, bringing an impact no less than a landslide or tsunami. "Lin Wan, is it really you?" He squeezed these words out through clenched teeth, his voice hoarse and broken, carrying a tremor and fear that even he himself hadn't noticed. "How can you be here? How did you become like this? How can I be here?" "Liu," Lin Wan let out a light laugh. But there wasn't a trace of warmth in that laughter, only endless mockery. "Isn't this all thanks to your lordship pronounced with golden words that I wouldn't survive 3 days after leaving the Marquis's manor? I had to find a place to prove that your lordship misjudged, didn't I?" She leisurely sat up, her bare feet stepping on the thick plush carpet, walking toward him step by step. The smoke and rosy cloud-colored hem of her dress swept across the floor, soundless yet carrying an invisible pressure. That peculiar recall fragrance lingered strand by strand at the tip of his nose, mingling with the cool herbal scent from her body, causing those scenes in Gu Yanzhang's mind that had been deliberately forgotten or never cared about to surge up uncontrollably. On their wedding night, she sat alone by the bed, her pale face barely visible beneath the red bridal veil. The soup she carefully brought him was knocked over with a wave of his hand, and when it splashed onto her dress, her eyes instantly dimmed after she tirelessly attended to the old madam at her sick without sleep or rest, her frail figure when he dismissed her with a single phrase, putting on an act, and that final day, kneeling in the freezing rain, her back straight, her eyes desolate. So it turned out those details he had turned a blind eye to had long been carved into his bones. It is just that he never cared, never treated her as a living, breathing person of flesh and blood. As for how I became like this, Lin Wan stopped 3 steps in front of him, tilting her face up slightly. Candlelight cast shadows on her perfect profile, her dark eyes bottomless. "Gu Yanzhang, have you ever truly known me? The country bumpkin in your eyes was nothing more than a phantom built from your arrogance and prejudice. What kind of person is the real Lin Wan? Do you even deserve to know?" Every single word was like an ice-tempered whip viciously lashing across Gu Yanzhang's face, striking until all color drained from it, leaving it burning with pain. He opened his mouth, wanting to retort, wanting to rebuke her for debasing herself and disgracing the family name. But all the words stuck in his throat and crumbled into defeat when he met those cold, calm eyes that seemed to see through everything. He suddenly recalled that divorce document with its sharp, forceful handwriting. Remembered her words, marriage and remarriage have nothing to do with each other. Life and death, honor and disgrace, nevermore shall they be connected. So it turned out that wasn't a tantrum, wasn't playing hard to get, but truly a heart dead as ashes, a resolute rebirth after severing all ties. A surge of emotions, shock, fury, the humiliation of being deceived and made a fool of, and a trace of needle-like stabbing pain and panic that even he himself was unwilling to admit suddenly seized him. You planned this all along, going to Jizhou to recuperate, slipping away like a cicada shedding its shell, then sneaking into this pleasure district, deliberately opposing me, opposing the Marquis's manor. Yu Yanzhang practically growled, his eyes bloodshot. Lin Wan, what deep scheming you have. What vicious methods. What exactly are you trying to do? What am I trying to do? Lin Wan acted as if she'd heard the joke of the century. She even clapped her hands lightly, yet her gaze was sharp as a blade. Lord Gu, that is a question I should be asking you. Your Gu family, that Liu Ruyan you all yearn for day and night. What is it that you're trying to do? She stepped forward, forcing Gu Yanzhang to retreat until his back pressed against the cold wall. In the 3 years I was married to you, did I ever do a single thing to wrong the Yu family, to wrong you? I kept to my duties, was filial to my mother-in-law, managed the household affairs. Even when you neglected and humiliated me, I never once complained. At least, never let you hear it. Her voice was calm, yet every word weighed 1,000 pounds, hammering into Gu Yanzhang's heart. But what did you do to me? 3 years of cold treatment, trampling my dignity, and finally letting a pregnant mistress enter the house, forcing me to kneel, driving me out. Gu Yanzhang, put your hand on your conscience and ask yourself, did I ever owe you people anything? It is you who owe me a way to live, justice. Gu Yanzhang was rendered speechless by her questioning, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Those things he once thought were natural, even secretly pleased about, were now bloodily torn open and laid bare before him, appearing so ugly and unbearable. Then you shouldn't degrade yourself either, running to this kind of place. He forced himself to maintain his last bit of authority, scolding with outward strength but inner weakness. Where does that leave the Gu family's face? How is Ruyan supposed to cope? The Gu family's face, Lin Wan sneered, her eyes full of undisguised contempt. When you Gu Yanzhang doted on your concubine and destroyed your wife, drove your legitimate wife to leave, and then took in your pregnant cousin, did you think about the Gu family's face? As for Liu Ruyan, she paused, her gaze instantly becoming unfathomably deep, like an ancient well with no visible bottom. How she deals with herself. What does it have to do with me? As for you, Marquis, instead of worrying about these things, you'd better think carefully about your charming, gentle, and understanding cousin Ruyan, her father, Minister Liu. Has he been having smooth sailing with his business in the northern frontier lately? That batch of grain that sank at Jizhou dock 3 years ago. After it was salvaged, what kind of shady goods did it actually turn into? Gu Yanzhang's entire body shook violently, as if struck by thunderbolts. Northern frontier. Jizhou dock, sunken ship. These words exploded like thunder in his mind. Minister Liu Ruyan's father, the business in the northern frontier. And the old case the Regent King is secretly investigating. Could it be that Lin Wan knows something? No, how could she possibly know? Those matters have far-reaching implications and are extremely confidential. What nonsense are you spouting? Gu Yanzhang was utterly terrified, his voice distorting. What sunken ship? What shady goods, Lin Wan? I'm warning you, don't spread alarmist rumors here, otherwise what? Lin Wan cut off his words, the cold smile at the corner of her mouth deepening. Otherwise you'll have the Marquis's manor or Minister Liu come after me again. Just like 3 years ago when they sent people to take care of me on my way to Jizhou, making me bedridden with illness. Boom. Gu Yanzhang felt the world spinning around him, his vision going dark. 3 years ago when Lin Wan went to the Jizhou estate to recuperate. He hadn't paid much attention at the time, assuming it was just Liu Ruyan using some petty tricks to get her out of sight and out of mind, temporarily away from the Marquis Manor. Could it be that wasn't a simple recuperation at all? Was it murder, an attempted murder? And Lin Wan not only knew about it, but survived and even found out who might be behind it. A massive fear like an icy hand gripped Gu Yanzhong's heart tightly, nearly suffocating him. Looking at this familiar yet strange woman before him, he felt a chill shoot up from the soles of his feet straight to the top of his head. She was no longer that countrywoman Lin Wan who could be kneaded and shaped at will by him, silently enduring everything. She was the mysterious courtesan Liu of Jiaxing Tower, a potential avenger holding earth-shattering secrets. A woman even the regent Prince Xiao Yan regarded differently, and even gifted paintings to protect. And he, Marquis Cheng'en Gu Yanzhong, her ex-husband, the one who had once trampled her into the mud, now stood before her like an ignorant and ridiculous clown, all his arrogance, prejudice, and self-righteousness torn to shreds. "You, who exactly are you?" Gu Yanzhong's voice was completely hoarse, trembling with despair. He realized he had never understood this woman who had shared his bed, though not his blanket, for 3 years, not even the slightest bit. Lin Wan looked at his collapsed and distraught appearance, the last faint ripple in her eyes returning to stillness, leaving only absolute coldness and distance. "Who am I?" she slowly repeated, her voice as light as a sigh, yet as heavy as a declaration. "Gu Yanzhong, remember this clearly. I am Lin Wan, the divorced woman cast aside like worn-out shoes by your Cheng'en Marquis Manor. And in the future I am the one who will return the humiliation and pain you inflicted upon me 100-fold with my own hands." She no longer looked at him, turned around, and walked toward the inner room. As her smoky rose-colored figure was about to disappear behind the beaded curtain, she turned her head slightly, leaving behind one last sentence. "Lord Marquis, take care. I won't see you out. Also, go back and tell Liu Ruyan. Her good days are coming to an end." The beaded curtain swayed, clinking crisply, concealing her figure and completely severing 2 worlds. Gu Yanzhong stood frozen in place, as if his bones had been pulled out of his body. He slumped against the cold wall and slowly slid down to sit on the ground. Cold sweat soaked through his inner garment, his forehead hair sticking to his pale cheeks. His ears buzzed, stars danced before his eyes, and only Lin Wan's final cold gaze and words echoed repeatedly, dragging him into a bottomless abyss. It was all wrong. Everything was wrong. Just what kind of existence had he provoked? And the Marquis Manor and Ruyan, what exactly had they done behind his back then? Outside the window, the clamour of Jiaxing Tower continued as always, making the deathly silence inside Xuanji Pavilion all the more pronounced. A storm was quietly brewing in this silence, and at the centre of the storm, that woman reborn from the ashes. Her path of revenge had only just truly begun. Gu Yanzhong didn't know how he left Jiaxing Tower. The warm breeze of the spring night brushed against his cheeks, yet it couldn't dispel the chill seeping from his bones. That brief quarter-hour encounter in Xuanji Pavilion was like a bizarre yet bone-chillingly cold nightmare, with every detail tearing and cutting through his mind over and over. Lin Wan's face, familiar yet strange, those eyes tempered with ice, those words that struck at his very heart, and that final statement about Liu Ruyan, about Jizhou Dock about 3 years ago, that care. He returned to Marquis Manor in a daze. The manor was still brightly lit, and from the main courtyard came the sound of Liu Ruyan's soft voice coaxing a maid to bring her pregnancy-stabilizing medicine, carrying a deliberately crafted sense of peace and harmony. This sound used to soothe all his irritation, but now it felt like fine needles piercing his eardrums, making that cold, dark doubt in his heart surge even more violently. The Marquis is back. Liu Ruyan, sharp-eyed, saw him stepping into the courtyard absent-mindedly and hurriedly stood up to greet him, her face bearing an impeccable, gentle smile. She reached out to take his arm. "Why do you look so pale? Is it too windy outside?" Before her hand could touch his sleeve, Gu Yanzhong recoiled abruptly as if scalded by fire. Liu Ruyan's smile froze on her face, her fingers awkwardly suspended in mid-air, a flash of surprise and grievance quickly passing through her eyes. "Marquis, Gu Yanzhong also realized his overreaction. He barely suppressed the tumultuous waves in his heart and stared intently at Liu Ruyan. This face was still beautiful and delicate, pitifully vulnerable. His cousin whom he had cherished dearly for 3 years. But at this moment, Lin Wan's words, "her good days are almost over," echoed in his ears like a curse, making him scrutinize her for the first time with an examining, suspicious gaze. "Ruyan," he spoke, his voice terribly hoarse. 3 years ago, when Lin Wan went to the Jizhou estate to recuperate, you arranged it, didn't you?" Liu Ruyan's heart jumped violently, but her face showed just the right amount of confusion and a hint of wounded injustice. Why is the Marquis suddenly asking about this? Is Sister saying something again? Back then, Sister herself said she wasn't feeling well and wanted to recuperate in a quiet place. I only arranged matters at the manor on her behalf, and I did report it to the old madam and the Marquis. As she spoke, her eyes reddened slightly. Is the Marquis doubting me? I've always respected Sister. How could I? I'm just asking casually. Gu Yanzhong interrupted her, looking away, not wanting to see her on the verge of tears. He was vexed and irritated, waving his hand. You're heavily pregnant, rest early. I'll go to the study. He practically fled in panic, leaving Liu Ruyan standing alone in the brightly lit room. The delicate grievance on her face faded away bit by bit, replaced by a gloomy unease. She caressed her slightly swollen belly, her nails nearly digging into her palm. Gu Yanzhong's reaction wasn't right. He went to Jaising Tower and met that Liu. Could it be that bitch Lin Wan? She actually didn't die, and even climbed up the social ladder to come back for revenge. No way. Absolutely not. A flash of ruthlessness crossed Liu Ruyan's eyes. She had gone through so much trouble to get rid of Lin Wan and take the position of mistress of Marquis Manor. She would never allow anyone to ruin it, especially Lin Wan. That woman must disappear completely. The next day, at the Regent Prince's manor, Xiaoyan toyed with a jade pendant in his hand, listening to the report from the hidden guard below. Your Highness, we've investigated thoroughly. 3 years ago at Jizhou Dock, there was a sunken ship. A copy of the salvage record was indeed kept in the hands of a minor clerk at the local transport office. After changing hands several times, it was coincidentally discovered by our people the day before yesterday. The record shows that the sunken ship carried 37 crates and trunks, but only 28 were salvaged. 3 of them were damaged, and inside were not the Jiangnan rice registered in the records, but inferior millet from the northern frontier mixed with large amounts of sand and dirt. The remaining crates' weights severely mismatched the registry. Furthermore, news came from the northern frontier that half a month ago, an unidentified force was secretly contacting several low-ranking border army officials who were responsible for receiving that batch of moldy provisions back then, seemingly collecting testimonies. Our people followed the trail and discovered that 2 of them had already died in accidents last year. Another one has gone missing. Xiaoyan's eyes narrowed slightly. Inferior millet. Sand and dirt, missing and dead. This was no longer just embezzlement, but suspected fraud by substitution, theft and sale of military provisions, and murder to silence witnesses. And the amount was probably substantial, with the timing coinciding exactly with the tense situation in the northern frontier 3 to 4 years ago. If true, this was practically a grave crime that could shake the foundation of the nation. What do the clues point to? Currently, all circumstantial evidence vaguely points to Li Yun, the Vice Minister of Revenue, and the hidden guard paused. Li Yun's examination sponsor, Liu Wenjung, the Minister of Revenue. This reveals the brilliance of Lin Wan's scheme. She is not simply taking revenge on her ex-husband and his mistress, but digging up an entire corruption chain. What nearly killed her 3 years ago wasn't a romantic rival, but an interest group involved in military rations embezzlement. Her revenge isn't a personal vendetta, but using borrowed force to strike back, wielding the court's blade to sever the entire tumor. This is the difference in perspective. Small-timers get tangled up in romantic affairs, while the real players flip the whole table. Liu Wenjung, Liu Ruyan's father. The jade piece between Xiaoyan's fingers stopped spinning. Lin Wan, or rather Liu, the clues she provided were accurate down to the last detail. Not only did she know, but the evidence she possessed was more lethal than he'd imagined. How could a convalescing, cast-out wife of 3 years come to know these court secrets and Borderlands conspiracies? What about Marquis's manner of receive a favor? After Gu Yanzhong returned from Picking Stars building last night, his behavior was abnormal, and today he took leave and didn't attend court. His concubine, Lady Liu, secretly dispatched a trusted old maid from the manor this morning, who went to the back gate of Minister Liu's residence. Our people intercepted a note being passed with only 4 characters, Jizhou Old Matter. Jizhou Old Matter, a cold arc curved at the corner of Xiaoyan's lips. It seemed someone couldn't sit still anymore. Any movement on Liu Wenjiang's end. After the court session today, Minister Liu didn't return directly to his manor, but went to Yaji Studio in the west part of the city to drink tea with several officials he has been in close contact with lately. Our people disguised as servants eavesdropped and vaguely heard words like account books, clean up thoroughly, need to appease the north, and such. Xiaoyan stood up and walked to the window, gazing at the brilliantly blooming peach blossoms in the courtyard, yet his eyes were sharp as blades. The fish have already been startled and are beginning to muddy the waters themselves. Good, murky waters are better for fishing. Pass down the order, he said indifferently. Keep a close watch on Liu Wenjiang, Li Yun, and every move of the Liu family at the Marquis' manor. On the Jizhou side, protect that petty clerk at the transport office. Well, if necessary, we can have him voluntarily come to the capital to file a complaint. As for that person who went missing at the northern frontier, I want to see them alive or see their corpse. Yes, the secret guard received the order and withdrew. Xiaoyan stood alone for a moment, his gaze turning toward the direction of Jising Tower. Liu, Lin Wan, just how many secrets are you still hiding, throwing out such a big fish? Is it really just to take revenge on Gu Yanzhang and Liu Ruyan? Or do you have other schemes? He recalled that day in Xuanji Pavilion, her serene profile when brewing tea, her piercing gaze when playing the zither, and that composure so calm it was almost cold when discussing their transaction. This woman was like an obscure yet captivating book that one knew was dangerous, yet couldn't help but turn page after page. So be it. Since she has already set the stage and the actors are appearing one after another, he might as well be a spectator too, and when necessary fan the flames a bit. The atmosphere at the Marquis Manor grew more oppressive with each passing day. Gu Yanzhong locked himself in his study, refusing to see anyone. Even when Liu Ruyan used fetal movement as an excuse to request his presence several times, she was turned away. He frantically searched through letters and account books from 3 years ago, trying to find any trace related to Jizhou or Lin Wan's convalescence. The more he searched, the more his heart sank. When Lin Wan left the Marquis Manor for Jizhou back then, all procedures were simplified, and it was done almost silently. The reports from the estate were extremely perfunctory, only saying that the lady was recuperating quietly and not seeing outsiders. At that time, his mind was full of how to comfort Liu Ruyan, who was depressed because her father, Minister Liu, had suffered setbacks in his official career. How would he have bothered to investigate closely the whereabouts of a wife he didn't care for? Looking back now, everything seemed suspicious. How could a manor's mistress, even if going to an estate to recuperate, only bring 2 old servants with her? The expenses and accounts for the estate were vague and unclear. And also, Liu Ruyan had been unusually enthusiastic about the matter at the time. Almost handling everything herself, could it be that everything Lin Wan said was true? This thought gnawed at his heart like a viper. If Lin Wan had truly almost been taken care of to death back then, who was the one who did it? Liu Ruyan or Minister Liu? Why would they do this? Was it merely to make room for Liu Ruyan? Or was there some hidden truth involving secrets about the Liu family or even the Marquis Manor that Lin Wan might have known? Gu Yanzhong didn't dare think deeply about it, yet he couldn't help but keep thinking. He recalled the cold, mocking look in Lin Wan's eyes when she last mentioned the sunken ship at Jizhou Dock, Minister Liu, Ministry of Revenue, Northern Frontier Provisions. These words connected together made him shudder with fear. Could it be that the Liu family was involved in stealing and selling military grain? And Lin Wan, by some twist of fate, found out something, which is why she attracted fatal disaster. This speculation made him feel like he'd fallen into an icy abyss. If this were true, then the Cheng'en Marquis manor. He as the Cheng'en Marquis, had he unknowingly been dragged into the mire as well? Liu Ruoyan's marriage to him, was it true love? Or was it a move by the Liu family to win over control? Or even use the Marquis manor as a scapegoat when things came to light? My lord, came the panicked voice of his attendant from outside the study. This is bad. There are so many officers outside. They say they're from the Ministry of Justice and the Court of Judicial Review. They want to summon my lord for questioning in court. Gu Yanzhang shot to his feet. His vision went black, and he had to grip the desk to steady himself. What? The Ministry of Justice, the Court of Judicial Review. A joint investigation. How big of a matter has occurred? He forced himself to stay calm, straightened his attire, and opened the study door. Outside the door, his personal attendant's face was deathly pale. In the courtyard, there indeed stood more than a dozen officials dressed in the black uniforms of the Ministry of Justice and the Court of Judicial Review. The two leaders had solemn expressions, holding official documents in their hands. Marquis Guy, one of the Ministry of Justice officials, cupped his hands in greeting. His tone was fairly polite, but his eyes brooked no argument. By imperial decree, we are cooperating with the Court of Judicial Review to investigate an old case. There are some matters we need to verify with you. Marquis, please come with us for a trip. Gu Yanzhang's heart pounded wildly, his voice tight. I wonder what old case requires this Marquis's cooperation. You'll know once you arrive, Marquis. The official refused to say more, stepping aside and making a pleased gesture. Gu Yanzhang knew he couldn't avoid it. Taking a deep breath, he strode outward. As he passed the main courtyard, he glimpsed Liu Ruoyan standing under the corridor. Her face was even paler than his, her fingers clutching a handkerchief in a death grip, her eyes full of terror. Their eyes met, and Gu Yanzhang saw complete panic and despair in her eyes. In that moment, the last shred of hope in his heart was extinguished. Outside the Marquis manor, quite a few commoners had already gathered to watch the excitement, pointing and discussing animatedly. The Marquis of Tonin being taken away for questioning by the Ministry of Justice and the Court of Judicial Review at the feet of the Son of Heaven. This was quite the sensational news. Before boarding the carriage, Gu Yanzhang instinctively looked up toward the distant, towering star-plucking tower where the lights never went out. In a trance, he seemed to see a blurry figure in rosy cloud-colored robes standing by the window of the Xuanji Pavilion on the top floor, quietly gazing down at the chaos unfolding before the gates of the Marquis manor. It was her. It must be her. The carriage started moving toward the unknown interrogation site. Gu Yanzhang leaned against the carriage wall and closed his eyes, feeling nothing but bone-chilling cold as unprecedented exhaustion and fear drowned him. He knew that the fate of the Cheng'en Marquis manor was truly about to change, and this storm had perhaps from the very beginning originated from the door he had pushed open with his own hands 3 years ago, and his contemptuous words, "country bumpkin." 3 days later, the capital was shaken. Li Yun, Vice Minister of Revenue, died suddenly of illness at his home under suspicious circumstances. But a large number of secret letters exchanged with northern frontier merchants and enormous banknotes of unknown origin were found in his study. Immediately after, an old clerk from the transport office in Jizhou came to the capital to file an imperial complaint, presenting a copy of the actual salvage records from the shipwreck at the dock 3 years ago, directly pointing to the shocking conspiracy of military grain substitution and the cover-up of the shipwreck back then. That missing minor border army official from the northern frontier was coincidentally found by patrolling troops, and though his mind was damaged, he could still identify the incident of receiving substandard provisions and being threatened by his superiors to keep silent. All the clues, as if cleverly connected by an invisible hand, ultimately pointed vaguely toward Liu Wenjiang, the Minister of Revenue. The Emperor was furious and ordered a thorough investigation. Liu Wenjiang was suspended from his position and confined in the mansion, with the imperial guards watching inside and outside the Liu residence. The atmosphere was tense with fear. Marquis Cheng'en Gu Yanzhang was interrogated at the Ministry of Justice and the Court of Judicial Review for several days. Although there was no direct evidence that he was involved, his concubine Lady Liu was Liu Wenjiang's daughter, and around the time Lady Liu married into Marquis' manor, There were unusual financial transactions between the Liu family and Marquis Manor. Gu Yanjiang himself could not escape the responsibility of failing to notice many matters concerning Lady Liu and her father. Some even dug up old accounts questioning his favoring of his concubine over his wife, his flawed character and his unworthiness of the title. Although Marquis Manor was not immediately stripped of its title, it was also teetering on the brink, its reputation in ruins. Liu Ruyan in Marquis Manor was like an ant on a hot pan. Her father was trapped and couldn't protect himself. Her husband had been detained, and after returning treated her as cold as ice, even with scrutiny and disgust. The servants in the mansion saw she had lost favor and gradually became negligent. The child in her belly was now not only not a talisman, but had become a burden that made her even more anxious and terrified. She tried several times to send people to contact her father's former subordinates or connections in the palace, but found that all channels seemed to be cut off by an invisible hand. She knew she was finished. The Liu family might also be finished. And the instigator of all this, Madam No, concubine, a woman who used to fawn over her now spoke in a much colder tone. Someone outside has sent a card, saying that Miss Liu from the Jising Tower wishes to invite concubine over for a visit. Jising Tower, Liu. Liu Ruyan shot up to her feet, her vision going dark. She clutched the edge of the table tightly to keep from collapsing. She is here. She really came, that godden bitch who won't leave me alone, fear and hatred intertwined, nearly tearing her apart. She didn't want to go. She knew it would definitely be a trap. But she also knew she had no way out. Perhaps, if she went, there might still be a sliver of hope. Or at least she could die knowing the truth. Prepare the carriage. Liu Ruyan squeezed out 2 words through gritted teeth, her nails digging deep into her palms, leaving bloody marks. It was still the Xuanji pavilion, but today there was no incense burning in the pavilion. The windows were wide open and the slightly sweltering wind of late spring blew through the hall, dispersing the usual cold tranquility and inexplicably stirring restlessness in people's hearts. When Liu Ruyan was led in, this was the scene she saw. Lin Wanlia was not lazily reclining on a couch like when she met Gu Yanjiang last time, nor was she playing the zither or brewing tea. She wore an extremely simple plain white dress, her hair fastened meticulously with an ebony hairpin, standing before that enormous glass window with her back to the door, gazing at the bustling street market outside. Her posture was upright as bamboo, yet emanated a desolate coldness. Hearing footsteps, she slowly turned around. No makeup, a bare face, but it was precisely this unadorned face that made Liu Ruyan freeze instantly in place, her blood seeming to turn to ice. It was this face, paler than 3 years ago, thinner, with all timidity and meekness faded from between her brows and eyes, leaving only a coldness and stillness after weathering storms, and also a kind of refined elegance that made her feel ashamed of herself yet hate it to the bone. You, it is really you, Liu Ruyan's voice trembled, whether from fear or hate, she didn't know. It is me, Lin Wan spoke, her voice calm and waveless. Aunt Liu, it has been a while. The 2 words, Aunt, pierced Liu Ruyan like a needle. She hated most when people mentioned her status as a concubine, especially hated it coming from Lin Wan's mouth. Lin Wan, stop pretending to be all mysterious here. Liu Ruyan forced herself to straighten her back, fierce on the outside but timid within. You think just because you've latched onto someone powerful and changed your skin, you can come back and lord it over us? Let me tell you, the Marquis has only ever had me in his heart. You're just a cast-off wife that nobody wants. Everything you're doing now is just out of jealousy. Out of revenge, jealousy, revenge, Lim Wan repeated softly, as if she'd heard something amusing. The corners of her lips even curved into an extremely faint arc. Yet her eyes remained cold as ever. Liu Ruyan, you think far too highly of yourself, and far too little of me. She walked closer step by step, her pace neither hurried nor slow, yet carrying an invisible pressure that forced Liu Ruyan to retreat involuntarily. What would I be jealous of you for? Jealous that you schemed and calculated, got pregnant before marriage, and stole a man whose heart may not even be clean. Jealous that your father took bribes and perverted the law, is now imprisoned and has implicated the whole family, or jealous that you're now carrying a child, but living day to day in uncertainty. And even the Marquis you've been pining for looks at you with nothing but disgust and suspicion. Each word precisely stepped on Liu Ruyan's sorest spots. Her face turned deathly pale, her whole body trembling. "You're talking nonsense. Father was wrongly accused. The Marquis does love me. It is all you. You're the bitch who framed us." "I framed you." Lin Wan stopped in her tracks, now only inches away from Liu Ruyan. She leaned in slightly, her voice extremely low, yet every word crystal clear, like ice beads crashing down. "Liu Ruyan, do I need to remind you about 3 years ago when I went to Jizhou to recover from illness? The carriage that suddenly went out of control, and those bandits who arranged them. Do I need to remind you what was added to that bowl of calming soup I had daily without interruption at the estate? Do I need to tell you how I died from illness, yet was saved? How bit by bit I traced it to the Jizhou docks, to the northern frontier's grain supplies, all the way to your Liu family?" Liu Ruyan reeled as if struck hard, staggering backward and colliding with the curio cabinet behind her, causing the porcelain on it to clatter noisily. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating from extreme fear, lips trembling, yet unable to make any sound. She knows, she really knows everything. She didn't escape by luck. She came back to claim a life debt. Surprised. Lin Wan straightened up, looking down at her as she collapsed weakly. "You thought you did it flawlessly. Too bad there is no wall in this world that doesn't let wind through." Liu Wenjing was insatiably greedy with dirty hands, leaving behind so many loose ends. "And you, Liu Ruyan, your biggest mistake was thinking that by getting rid of me, you could rest easy, could forever occupy what doesn't belong to you, could cover up your Liu family's filthy secret. No, that is not it. I didn't." Liu Ruyan collapsed on the ground, speaking incoherently, tears and snot streaming down her face. The delicate beauty she had carefully maintained was completely gone, leaving only utter wretchedness and fear. It was father who I didn't know. I really didn't know about the military provisions. I just wanted to compete with you. I just wanted Brother Yanzhang." "Compete?" Lin Wan cut her off, a trace of clear, icy disgust finally flashing in her eyes. "Compete by drugging, by plotting murder. Liu Ruyan, your love is really cheap and really vicious." She stopped looking at the broken woman on the ground, turned back to the window, her voice returning to its usual calm, yet carrying a finality of coldness. "Minister Liu's crimes are irrefutable. No one can save him. Gu Yanzhang can barely protect himself. Marquis' manor is crumbling. As for you," she paused, not turning back, "enjoy everything you competed for, carrying your precious Marquis' manor bloodline, in cold stares, fear and prolonged torment. Slowly savor the bitter fruit you planted yourself. See the guest out." The woman in green appeared silently, making a pleased gesture toward Liu Ruyan, who was slumped like mud, her manner respectful but her eyes like ice. When Liu Ruyan was almost dragged away from the Xuanji pavilion, the last thing she saw was Lin Wan's ever straight back and outside the window, that free and vast world she could never reach again. She knew she was finished, completely finished. She didn't lose to Lin Wan. She lost to her own and her father's greed and cruelty. 1 month later, the case of Liu Wenjing embezzling military funds, illegally selling military provisions, colluding with the northern frontier, and killing to silence witnesses was irrefutable, shocking the entire court. The emperor issued an edict. Liu Wenjing was stripped of his position, his household confiscated, sentenced to immediate execution, and his family members exiled 3,000 li, with no pardon even upon general amnesty. The Liu family, once a flourishing tree, collapsed with a thunderous crash. Although Marquis of Cheng'en Gu Yanzhang had no direct evidence of participation in the crimes, he was lax in managing his household, negligent in supervision, and lacking in virtue. He was stripped of his title, reduced to commoner status, and the Marquis Manor's imperially bestowed residence was reclaimed. In consideration of his ancestors' merits, no other punishments were imposed. But the Gui family fell into decline from then on, completely withdrawing from the capital city's elite circles. On the eve of the Liu family's raiding, Liu Ruyan accidentally had a miscarriage. The doctor said it was caused by excessive worry and fear, with the child gone, Gu Yanzhang. Now to be called commoner, Gu exhausted the last bit of affection he had for her and divorced her. A divorced daughter of a convicted official, childless, with her family fallen, her fate was predictable. It was said she later ended up in the lowest-class secret brothel in the capital city and soon died in depression. Of course, that is a story for later. On the day the dust settled, Xiao Yan set foot in Jiaxing Tower, Xuanji Pavilion once again. Inside the pavilion, it was still elegant and refined. The cold fragrance had been replaced by the faint aroma of green plums simmered in wine. Lin Wan sat by the small table near the window, playing a game of Go against herself. Black and white pieces scattered across the board. Already mid-game, with killing intent lurking, Your Highness has arrived. Without lifting her head, she held a black piece between her fingertips, pondered for a moment, and with a clack placed it somewhere on the board. Xiao Yan sat down across from her, glanced at the game, and said with a smile, "Miss, what excellent calculations, advancing step by step, decisive in attack and defense. With this move, White has already lost the upper hand." Only then did Lin Wan raise her eyes. There was a faint trace of weariness in them, yet they remained clear and bright. "Your Highness is too kind. I merely borrowed the momentum and struck when the time was right. Without Your Highness's strategic planning and thunderous methods, those clues of mine alone wouldn't have been able to shake Liu Wenjung's foundation." Likewise, Xiao Yan poured himself a cup of wine, warmed plum wine, sweet and sour with a hint of alcohol. The clues the young lady provided were crucial. However, this prince still has one matter he doesn't understand. "Your Highness, please speak. Your Highness, please speak. You schemed and planned to bring down the Liu family, to take revenge on Gu Yanzhang and Liu Ruyan, and now you've achieved it." Xiao Yan looked at her, his gaze profound. "What does the young lady plan to do next? Continue staying at this Jiaxing Tower as Miss Liu?" Lin Wan put down the chess piece in her hand, her gaze turning toward the window. Dusk was gathering on all sides, lanterns were just being lit, and the clamor of Jiaxing Tower was just beginning another night of drunken revelry and gold-flecked dreams. "This place," she said softly, "is merely a temporary shelter and also a mirror that reflects the demons in people's hearts, and reflects myself as well." She withdrew her gaze and looked at Xiao Yan, her expression calm. "I've already fulfilled Your Highness's initial promise with Liu Wenjung's evidence of crimes. Now that the grievances are settled, it is time for me to leave this place." "Leave?" Xiao Yan wasn't surprised, only asked, "Where to? The world is so vast. Where can I not go?" Lin Wan smiled faintly. This smile had less coldness and more relief, along with the brightness befitting her age. "Perhaps I'll return to Jiangnan to have a look. My mother's ancestral home is there. Perhaps I'll travel to the northern frontier to see different scenery. Or perhaps I'll find a quiet little place, open a tea house or bookshop, and live out my days in peace." She stood up, walked to the chin, her fingertips brushing across the strings. That broken string had long been mended as good as new. "These 3 years I've been trapped by hatred, plotting every step carefully, almost forgetting what I was originally like. Now that the shackles are gone, it is time to live for myself." Xiao Yan watched her quietly. Having shed the burden of revenge and cast off Li Ye's glamorous facade, the woman before him had washed away all pretense, her features relaxed. Though she still possessed a cool temperament, she was no longer aggressive. Instead, she had a freshness and resilience like green bamboo after rain. This version of her, compared to that cold and sharp avenger, was even more impossible to look away from. If the young lady wishes to live a simple life, this prince has several country estates on the outskirts of the capital that are quite peaceful. He spoke, his tone carrying a gentleness he himself hadn't noticed. But Lin Wan shook her head, her smile faint yet resolute. "Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness. It is just that, for the rest of Lin Wan's life, I don't want to depend on anyone or any power anymore. I want to see how far I can go, what kind of life I can live, relying only on myself." Xiao Yan paused for a moment, then burst into hearty laughter, admiration and understanding flashing in his eyes. This prince was presumptuous. The young lady's aspirations reach far and wide. her character noble and pure. You're not meant to be a canary in a cage. Very well. He raised his cup. Then with this drink, I wish you a smooth path ahead and freedom to follow your heart. Lin Wan also picked up her own untouched cup of wine and gently clinked it with his. I also wish your highness a smooth political career and the fulfillment of all your wishes. The two drank together. The wine was warm, but it carried a hint of refreshing coolness as it went down the throat. Before leaving, there is one more matter I'd like to ask your highness to help facilitate. Lin Wan put down her wine cup and said seriously, Please speak, miss. Although Gian Zhang brought it upon himself among the Gu family's old servants, there are a few nannies and maids who once showed me kindness and looked after me. Now that the Gu family has fallen on hard times, I'm afraid they'll have difficulty making a living. I'd like to ask your highness to help arrange for them to be settled on a reliable estate. Give them work to do so they can live out their remaining years peacefully. As for the silver needed, I have here. This matter is easy, rest assured, miss. This prince will arrange it properly. You needn't worry about the silver, consider it part of my gratitude. Xiao Yan interrupted her, agreeing readily. Lin Wan didn't decline further and bowed respectfully. In that case, thank you, your highness. 3 days later, on a morning when the sky was just beginning to brighten, an unremarkable small cart covered in blue cloth drove out from the back door of the star-plucking tower, silently merging into the capital city's streets that had not yet fully awakened, heading towards the city gate. The carriage curtain lifted at one corner, revealing a plain, clean face. Lin Wan took one last look back at the towering, magnificent 7-story pavilion behind her, and further beyond toward the Marquis's manor that had imprisoned her youth and dignity for 3 years, and now had grown dim. No lingering attachment, no satisfaction. Only the calm and relief that comes when dust finally settles. It was all over. And it was all beginning. The carriage rumbled forward, passing through the towering city gates, leaving far behind that imperial capital which had borne countless loves and hatreds, glory and collapse. Ahead lay the rising morning sun, the vast official road, and an unknown future filled with infinite possibilities. The wind lifted the carriage curtain, carrying in the fresh scent of the fields. Lin Wan closed her eyes and took a deep breath. From now on, she was Lin Wan, just Lin Wan. Everyone, let me redefine what high-level revenge really means. Lin Wan's revenge doesn't rely on crying and throwing tantrums, doesn't rely on seducing her ex-husband, and doesn't even rely on direct retaliation. What she uses is killing by borrowed force, turning herself into an information node, letting the Prince Regent investigate the case, letting the court raid and confiscate properties. She only needs to, at the right moment, to the right person, hand over the right evidence. The most brilliant part is her choice of a brothel as her stage. What is a brothel? It is an information hub, a backyard garden for the powerful and noble, the dirtiest yet safest place. She didn't fall into prostitution. She occupied a strategic high ground. Here she could access the most confidential information, make the proudest men kneel before her, and use her courtesan identity to conceal her true face as an avenger. Now look at her becoming famous in 3 days. Ordinary people think it is about how amazing she was to become a top courtesan in 3 days. But what is the truth? She had actually prepared for 3 years. Recovering from illness in Jizhou was a cover. Collecting evidence was the real purpose. She didn't suddenly become strong. She unleashed 3 years of hidden strength in 3 days. It is like someone saying, I learned piano in 3 days, when they actually secretly practiced for 10 years. And what is Gu Yanzhang's greatest tragedy? It is not losing his title, not his family's downfall, but that he died never knowing what he had lost. He thought Lin Wan was a country bumpkin, when she was actually likely a hidden noble orphan, hinted at by the 3-year blank period in Jizhou. He thought Liu Ruyan was true love, when she was actually a tool for a marriage of convenience. He thought he was a winner in life, when in reality he was a pussy-controlled pawn from the very beginning. What I admire most about this story is Lin Wan's final choice. She didn't marry the regent prince, didn't continue being a courtesan, but chose to leave and live an ordinary life. This is the mentality of a true strong person. I have the power to destroy you, but I choose to let you go, because you're no longer worth my time. Remember this truth about life. True revenge isn't making your enemies suffer. but letting them discover that everything they take pride in is built on lies. When the truth comes to light, they'll be crushed by their own stupidity, and what you need to do is make sure you're standing on the side of truth. See you in the next story.